The day the judge looked at me with pity was the day I realized my husband thought he had already won. I sat silently inside the crowded courtroom while Daniel's lawyers organized stacks of documents across their table with the confidence of people who never expected to lose. Expensive suits, calm smiles, careful whispers. They looked relaxed because on paper, my husband had destroyed me perfectly. And honestly, for a while I thought so too. 3 months earlier, Daniel filed for divorce without warning after 17 years of marriage. 17 years of building a life together, supporting his career, raising our daughter, sacrificing my own ambitions so his business could grow into the empire everyone admired publicly. Then one morning, he simply sat across from me at breakfast and said words that still echoed in my head months later. "I'm not happy anymore." Just like that. No emotion. No hesitation. Like happiness was something only he deserved. At first, I thought we could fix things. Couples struggle. Marriages change. Real love survives difficult seasons. At least that's what I believed after nearly 2 decades together. But Daniel had already moved on emotionally long before that conversation. I realized it the night I found hotel receipts hidden inside his briefcase. 2 guests, weekend reservations. Same luxury suite booked repeatedly over 6 months. And suddenly, every late business trip started making sense. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. That was the worst part. No apology, no guilt, just exhaustion. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he told me quietly. That sentence always makes me laugh now, because betrayal never happens. People choose it repeatedly until honesty becomes inconvenient. The divorce turned ugly fast after that. Very ugly. Daniel hired one of the most aggressive legal teams in the city while I struggled just to understand half the paperwork being thrown at me daily. Hidden assets, financial disclosures, property disputes, technical language designed to confuse ordinary people until they give up. And slowly, I started losing everything. The vacation home, investment accounts, business shares. Even the house we raised our daughter in suddenly became negotiable assets instead of memories. Daniel claimed most of the wealth came directly from his company's success, and legally, his lawyers were somehow making it believable. Every court session felt worse than the last. But today was supposed to be the final blow. I sat stiffly beside my attorney while Daniel entered the courtroom wearing the exact same confident expression that once made me fall in love with him years ago. Funny how charm changes once trust dies. He barely looked at me while taking his seat. That hurt more than anger somehow. Like 17 years meant so little he couldn't even pretend sadness anymore. The judge adjusted several documents before speaking calmly. "After reviewing the financial evidence presented," she began, "the court is prepared to finalize asset division." My chest tightened instantly. Beside me, my attorney looked nervous. Very nervous. And that terrified me, because lawyers only look nervous when they know something bad is coming. Daniel's lead attorney stood confidently. "Your Honor, my client has provided full financial transparency throughout these proceedings." Lie. But a polished one. The judge nodded slowly while reviewing the paperwork. Then she looked directly at me. "Mrs. Carter," she said carefully, "unless additional evidence exists, the court is prepared to proceed." That sentence nearly broke me because suddenly everything felt final. 17 years reduced to signatures and percentages. I lowered my eyes toward the table, trying not to cry inside a room full of strangers. And that was the exact moment my phone vibrated. One email. Unknown sender. Received 30 seconds earlier. At first, I almost ignored it completely, but then I saw the subject line, and instantly, everything changed. My hands shook as I stared at the phone screen. The courtroom noise around me suddenly felt distant, blurred beneath the pounding of my heartbeat. The subject line was only 5 words long. He lied about everything. I frowned immediately. Unknown sender. No name. No signature. Just one attachment underneath the message. For a second, I honestly thought it might be spam or some cruel joke. Divorce cases attract ugly people. Daniel's business world was filled with competitors, angry former employees, and opportunists. But something about the timing felt wrong. Too precise. The judge was literally seconds away from finalizing everything. Beside me, my attorney whispered nervously, "Emily, are you all right?" I looked up quickly, realizing everyone was waiting for me to respond to the judge's statement. No additional evidence. No reason to delay proceedings. No chance left to fight back. At least that's what Daniel believed. I swallowed hard and stood slowly. Your Honor, I may have just received something relevant to this case. Instant irritation flashed across Daniel's face. His lawyer immediately objected. We cannot delay final proceedings over random electronic correspondence. The judge raised her hand calmly. Let her speak. I unlocked the phone carefully and opened the attachment. My stomach dropped instantly. Emails, dozens of them. Private corporate emails between Daniel and his financial advisor. Not personal messages, financial instructions, asset transfers, hidden offshore accounts, shell companies, and then I saw the dates. Most of those transfers happened only weeks before Daniel filed for divorce. My entire body went cold because suddenly everything made sense. The missing money, the disappearing investments, the sudden claims that certain accounts no longer existed. Daniel hadn't simply protected his wealth, he had hidden it, illegally. I looked across the courtroom slowly, and the second Daniel saw my expression, his confidence disappeared, only slightly, but enough. That was the first moment during the entire divorce where he looked nervous instead of controlled. My attorney leaned closer immediately. What is it? Without speaking, I handed her the phone. Her eyes scanned the emails rapidly, then widened. Oh my God, she whispered. That reaction alone caught the judge's attention instantly. Counselor? The judge asked sharply. My attorney stood immediately now. Your Honor, we are requesting an immediate suspension of proceedings pending review of newly obtained financial evidence. Daniel's lawyer stood fast. Objection. We have no verification of authenticity. But the damage had already started because Daniel looked panicked now. Real panic. Not irritation, not annoyance, fear. And powerful men only panic when something dangerous is true. The judge narrowed her eyes carefully. Approach the bench. Within seconds, both attorneys moved forward while I remained frozen beside the table, trying to process what was happening. Across the courtroom, Daniel finally looked directly at me for the first time all day. Not coldly, not confidently, desperately. That terrified me more than his arrogance ever had because it meant the emails were real, every single one. My attorney returned moments later holding the phone tightly, her voice lowered carefully. Emily, if these records are authentic, Daniel committed serious financial fraud. Fraud. The word echoed through my mind heavily. I looked back at my husband, the man who spent months trying to convince the court he had been completely transparent, the man who calmly watched me lose almost everything. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. Daniel never expected anyone to find those accounts, which meant whoever sent me that email knew exactly how dangerous it was. The judge adjusted her glasses slowly before speaking again. This court will take a 15-minute recess while these materials are reviewed. The room exploded into whispers instantly. Lawyers moved quickly. Court officers exchanged confused looks. And Daniel? Daniel remained completely still in his chair. But his eyes never left me. Because somehow, one hidden email had just destroyed the entire case he spent months building against me. The moment the courtroom emptied for recess, Daniel came toward me fast. Too fast. His lawyer tried stopping him quietly, but Daniel ignored him completely. That alone told me how badly things were unraveling behind his calm expression. Who sent you that email? He demanded under his breath. No greeting, no denial, just panic. I stared at him for a second, stunned by how quickly his mask had fallen apart. I thought you provided full financial transparency, I replied calmly. His jaw tightened instantly. This isn't a game, Emily. Funny, because for months he treated our marriage exactly like one, a game he thought he had already won. My attorney stepped between us immediately. You shouldn't be speaking to her directly right now. Daniel barely acknowledged her. His eyes stayed locked on mine desperately now. Listen to me carefully, he said quietly. Those emails can be misunderstood. Misunderstood. Of course. Men like Daniel always believe truth becomes negotiable if explained carefully enough. I folded my arms slowly. Then, explain them. For the first time since the divorce began, Daniel looked cornered. Really cornered. Not arrogant, not superior. Afraid. And suddenly I remembered every moment during the past few months where he acted unusually tense whenever finances came up. Every rushed signature, every delayed statement, every time his lawyers pushed aggressively to finalize settlements quickly. He wasn't trying to move on. He was trying to finish everything before someone uncovered the truth. "What exactly are those accounts?" I asked quietly. Daniel lowered his voice further. "Not here." That answer alone confirmed enough. My attorney stepped closer protectively now. "We're done discussing this." But Daniel ignored her again. And then he said something that changed everything even further. "You don't understand who else is involved." A chill moved through my chest immediately. Who else? The judge's assistant appeared near the courtroom doors then, announcing proceedings would resume shortly. Around us, attorneys and court staff started returning to their seats while tension spread visibly through the room. Daniel leaned closer one final time. "If those emails become official court evidence," he whispered carefully, "a lot of people could get hurt. Not could be embarrassed. Not could face investigation. Hurt." That word stayed with me. Then he walked away before I could respond. I watched him return to his table slowly, and for the first time in 17 years, I truly saw my husband clearly. Not successful, not charming, dangerous. The judge re-entered moments later carrying printed copies of the emails now. The courtroom became silent instantly. Very silent. She adjusted her glasses carefully before speaking. "Mr. Carter," she said calmly, "the court would like clarification regarding several undisclosed offshore entities linked to your financial records." Daniel's lawyer stood immediately. "Your Honor, we strongly dispute both the origin and interpretation of these documents." But the judge wasn't looking at the lawyer anymore. She was looking directly at Daniel, and suddenly his confidence looked painfully artificial. "Did you or did you not transfer marital assets into undeclared holding accounts prior to divorce proceedings?" she asked sharply. A dangerous pause followed. Every person in that courtroom felt it. Daniel swallowed once before answering carefully. "Those accounts are connected to private business protections." Lie. Even I knew it immediately now. Because Daniel always used complicated language when he needed distance from the truth. The judge leaned back slowly. Then she opened one specific email. And everything changed again. Her expression hardened instantly while reading. "Mr. Carter," she said quietly. The courtroom held its breath. "This email appears to instruct your financial advisor to hide assets specifically to prevent your wife from accessing them during divorce proceedings." Complete silence. Absolute silence. And beside me, Daniel's attorney finally looked terrified too. For a moment, nobody in the courtroom moved. The silence felt so heavy it almost became physical. Daniel's attorney quickly stood again, trying to regain control of the situation before it completely collapsed. "Your Honor," he said carefully, "we request time to independently verify these materials before drawing conclusions." But the judge wasn't listening anymore. She kept reading the email slowly and carefully, and the longer she read, the worse Daniel's face became. I watched the confidence drain out of him in real time, not because he got caught lying, but because he realized the exact lie had been exposed. The judge finally looked up. "Mr. Carter," she said sharply, "did you write the sentence? Move the remaining assets before Emily's legal team notices the discrepancy?" Daniel froze, a tiny pause that was barely noticeable, but deadly. His attorney answered before he could. "Again, Your Honor, authenticity has not been established." The judge ignored him completely. "Answer the question." Every eye in the courtroom turned toward Daniel, and suddenly the man who spent months controlling every part of this divorce looked trapped inside his own strategy. He started carefully, then stopped, because there was no safe answer anymore. If he denied it, and the email was authenticated later, it would become perjury. If he admitted it, everything would collapse immediately. I sat perfectly still beside my attorney while emotions crashed violently inside me. Anger, relief, shock. 17 years of marriage suddenly rearranging themselves into something uglier than I ever imagined. Daniel didn't just betray me emotionally. He planned to financially erase me too. The judge placed the printed email onto the bench slowly. "Mr. Carter," she continued calmly, "this court takes financial concealment during divorce proceedings extremely seriously." Daniel's attorney spoke quickly now. "My client has cooperated fully throughout these proceedings." That almost made me laugh. Fully cooperated, while they spent months portraying me as unreasonable and hiding millions. The judge looked unimpressed. "Then perhaps your client would like to explain why multiple offshore entities were excluded from official disclosures." No response. Not from Daniel, not from his lawyers. Nothing. Because they knew the situation was spiraling too fast to contain now. Behind me, I could hear quiet whispers spreading across the courtroom gallery. Court staff, other attorneys, observers, all sensing the same thing at once. This was no longer a normal divorce case. This was fraud. My attorney leaned toward me quietly. "Emily, this changes everything." She was right, not only legally but emotionally too, because suddenly every painful moment during this divorce looked different. Daniel's arrogance, his pressure tactics, his confidence during settlement discussions, it was never confidence. It was calculation. He believed I would leave this marriage broken, embarrassed, and financially dependent while he walked away untouched. Instead, he was now sitting in front of a judge trying not to incriminate himself publicly. The judge adjusted several documents before speaking again. "Given the seriousness of these allegations," she said carefully, "this court is suspending final asset division immediately pending full forensic financial investigation." Daniel closed his eyes briefly for just a second, but I saw it. Defeat. Small. Temporary, maybe, but real. Then the judge said something that changed the atmosphere completely. "If these records are verified," she continued, "the court may reconsider all previous rulings regarding marital asset distribution." My breath caught instantly. Around the courtroom, whispers exploded again because everyone understood what that meant. Daniel hadn't just risked losing hidden money. He risked losing everything. And for the first time since the divorce started, I wasn't the one afraid anymore. The courtroom didn't feel like a place for divorce anymore. It felt like a crime scene slowly being uncovered. Daniel sat motionless at his table while his attorney whispered urgently in his ear, flipping through papers like he could physically rewrite reality if he just moved fast enough. But there was nothing left to fix. The judge had already seen enough. And so had I. For the first time, I wasn't looking at my husband as the man who betrayed me emotionally. I was looking at him as someone who planned deception step by step, deliberately, coldly, financially. The judge adjusted the email printout again. "Mr. Carter," she said firmly, "this court needs clarification on whether you authorize the concealment of marital assets during active divorce proceedings." Daniel finally spoke, but his voice wasn't strong anymore. "It was standard financial restructuring," he said carefully. His lawyer quickly added, "common practice in business protection strategy." But even as they spoke, it sounded weak, rehearsed, desperate. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Standard practice does not include instructing advisors to hide assets from a spouse during legal separation," she replied. Silence again. Daniel's hands tightened slightly on the table. For the first time since I had known him, I saw him lose control of language, the thing he always used as a weapon. I looked down at the email again in front of me. One sentence stood out. "Before Emily's legal team notices." So he didn't just expect me to lose, he expected me not to fight back at all. That realization hurt in a different way. Not emotional, but structural, like discovering the foundation of your entire life was built on assumptions you never agreed to. The judge turned another page, then paused. "Additionally," she said slowly, "there is reference to a secondary beneficiary structure labeled under a third-party identity." Daniel's attorney stood immediately. "Objection. This is outside the scope of current proceedings." But the judge raised her hand again. "Denied." Her eyes shifted back to Daniel. "Explain the third-party beneficiary." Daniel's expression tightened instantly, and for the first time he didn't answer quickly. That hesitation told me everything, because he had answers ready for almost everything else. But not this. I could feel my heartbeat slow as I watched him carefully. Something deeper was underneath all of this. Not just hidden money. Something tied to someone else. Daniel finally exhaled sharply. That structure is unrelated to the divorce, he said. The judge narrowed her eyes. Everything involving marital asset concealment is related to this divorce. A tense pause followed. Then she looked back at the email and read aloud. Transfer remaining holdings under S. Bennett before audit triggers. The name hit the room instantly. A soft wave of confusion spread through the courtroom, but Daniel's reaction was immediate. Too immediate. His head snapped up sharply and I saw it. Recognition, fear, something personal. My attorney leaned toward me slightly. Do you know that name? I shook my head slowly. No, but clearly Daniel did, and suddenly the divorce case wasn't just about money anymore. It was about someone he was trying desperately to protect or hide. The judge looked up again. Mr. Carter, she said firmly, who is S. Bennett? This time, Daniel didn't speak. He couldn't. Because whatever answer existed was going to destroy more than just the divorce settlement. And I could feel it clearly now. The email wasn't the end of the truth. It was only the beginning. The name S. Bennett hung in the courtroom like smoke that refused to clear. Nobody spoke. Not the lawyers, not the observers, not even Daniel. For the first time since this entire divorce began, he looked completely cornered. Not by evidence alone, but by something far more dangerous. A name he couldn't explain without consequences. The judge's voice cut through the silence again. Mr. Carter, she said firmly, this court is giving you one final opportunity to clarify the identity of S. Bennett. Daniel swallowed once slowly, his hand still on the table, but I could see the tension in his jaw. The man who had controlled every detail of this divorce was now trapped by a single line in an email, and whatever S. Bennett meant, it mattered more than everything else. He finally spoke, but his voice was quieter now. That name refers to a consulting intermediary, he said carefully. His attorney immediately followed. A standard third-party financial liaison used in international restructuring. The explanation sounded rehearsed, too clean, too fast. The judge didn't react immediately. She simply looked at the email again, then read the next line aloud. Ensure beneficiary access remains uninterrupted after separation finalization. A pause followed. Then her eyes lifted. Mr. Carter, she said slowly, this does not read like standard restructuring. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted again, and this time even Daniel's attorney stopped speaking, because they all understood the implication. This wasn't just asset concealment anymore. It looked intentional, strategic, designed around the timing of divorce. Daniel finally looked at me, and for the first time there was no control in his expression, only urgency, like he was silently asking me to stop this from going further. But I didn't move. Because I finally understood something important. This wasn't just about me losing assets. It was about who he was protecting while doing it. The judge leaned forward slightly. I am ordering an immediate forensic audit of all financial structures associated with both parties, she said firmly, including any third-party beneficiaries. That word hit the room hard. Beneficiaries. Plural. Daniel's breathing changed slightly, and that's when I realized this wasn't over yet. Not even close. The judge continued, if fraud and concealment are confirmed, this court will revisit all prior rulings, including spousal asset distribution and penalties. A wave of shock moved through the courtroom gallery because everyone understood what that meant now. Daniel didn't just risk losing hidden money, he risked losing credibility, reputation, and possibly legal freedom. The bailiff stepped forward quietly to collect the printed emails as evidence, and as he did, Daniel finally broke his silence. This is being taken out of context, he said sharply. I did what I had to do to protect my business. But his voice didn't carry the same authority anymore. It sounded defensive, smaller. The judge responded calmly. Protecting your business does not include concealing marital assets during divorce proceedings. Silence fell again. Daniel looked down for a moment, and when he looked back up, something in him had shifted. Not strength, not arrogance, but acceptance. Because deep down, he already knew the truth was no longer controllable. Then the judge gave the final instruction for the day. This court will reconvene after full financial verification reports are submitted. She paused briefly. Until then, all prior asset division rulings are suspended. My breath caught. because everything Daniel thought he had taken from me was no longer his. Court was adjourned, and as the room slowly came back to life, Daniel looked at me. And for the first time since I walked in, I saw fear. Not of the court, not of the case, but of what I might discover next. And somehow I knew the truth behind S. Bennett wasn't just going to finish the divorce, it was going to expose a life I never even knew existed.